Welcome back. I'm sorry to say that this is our last lecture. I've had a lot of fun introducing you to ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Since it's graduation day, I have to prepare you for the real world, life after a course on deciphering hieroglyphs. So I'll be suggesting how you can continue your studies of hieroglyphs, places to visit, things to read. But first, we'll conclude our translating with two objects from Tutankhamun's tomb. Let's start with a magical mirror. There were many cosmetic and toilet objects in the tomb, but the most beautiful was a mirror case in the shape of an ankh. The mirror itself was missing, probably stolen by the tomb robbers due to the value of the metal. This modern reproduction is what the mirror probably looked like based on the case discovered in the tomb. It's shaped like an ankh, the hieroglyph for life. Well, the word for mirror is also ankh. So an ankh-shaped mirror is a visual pun. It's a play on words. There's also a bit of magic involved in mirrors. When you looked into one, it captured your image. Look closely at the decoration in the center. See the winged scarab? It's holding a solar disk. Now look very closely beneath the scarab. It's a Neb sign. And just above it are 3 plural strokes. This isn't just artistic decoration. It's spelling out one of the names of Tutankhamun, Neb-Keperu-Re. We have Tutankhamun's name in the center, flanked by 2 cobras protecting the king. They also hold Shen signs, hieroglyphs for eternity. So the center says, Neb-Keperu-Re, protected forever. This entire tableau comes out of a lotus flower, a symbol of resurrection. One of the treasures Carter found in the tomb is a wood head of Tutankhamun coming out of a lotus flower. There were hieroglyphs running down the left and right sides of the mirror case. Let's translate the hieroglyphs on the right side. There are a few words you won't know, but I'll help. With any text, be it on the wall of a temple, an inscribed object, or an inscription on papyrus, you'll find words you don't know. This is when you go to the big dictionary, like Gardner's, and try to figure it out. But let's see what we do know. We'll go hieroglyph by hieroglyph. The first 3 are easy. The ankh is life, the banner hieroglyph is God, and the nefer is good. The next hieroglyph is new. Look at it carefully. It's part of a hieroglyph we're familiar with. Hint: think numbers, fractions. Yes, it's part of the Eye of Horus. See, it's the lower 2 pieces. This was pronounced Teyet, and it means likeness. Next, we have the solar disk, but no stroke. So it's not day, it's Re, the sun god. Normally, we might expect the God determinative hieroglyph, but on something as small as the edge of a mirror, space is limited, so abbreviations are to be expected. Next, we have a word that looks familiar, but in a form slightly different from what we're used to. What word does it look like? Yes, per, to go forth. Remember, the actual name of the Book of the Dead is Per Em Haru, the going forth by day. This new word has the same root, but with some extra hieroglyphs. One is the little circle, which usually means something that comes in chunks. And there's some plural strokes. We also have a loaf T, so it's feminine. The word means seed, and I think it does relate to the verb to go forth. After all, seeds germinate and bring forth life. It would have been pronounced something like peret. This is followed by our God sign. And the hieroglyphs after that tell us it's the adjectival form of God, netcheri, divine. So altogether, it's divine seed. Next, we have the water sign N and the tethering ring Nich, which means of. Divine seed of whom? Well, we have a God, and it's Atum. Okay, that makes sense. Remember when we were talking about myths and Atum created the other gods by himself? Well, he did it by masturbation, which gives us the divine seed. So Tutankhamun is being called the divine seed of Atum. If we take this section from the top, we have the good God, living, likeness of Re, divine seed of Atum. Now, let's continue with the inscription. We're familiar with all these hieroglyphs. First is the sedge plant, the symbol of Upper Egypt. It's also the word for south and was pronounced Resi. This is followed by a B, the symbol of Lower Egypt. From our lecture on the names of the kings, we remember that this is a preamble to a king's name. Then we have Neb, which means every, all, and Lord. Since we're dealing with the king's name, Lord's the best bet. Lord of what? The two lands. Those are two spits of land. Finally, we come to the king's name, Neb Keperu Re, which may mean something like the lordly manifestation of Re. Remember, Keper, the beetle, means to exist. Let's continue with the king's second name. As we know, the duck is pronounced Sa and means sun. The solar disk doesn't have a stroke, so it doesn't mean sun or day. Again, in this case, it means the sun god Re, even though it doesn't have the god determinative. As I said, space is limited. You expect abbreviations. So Tutankhamun is the son of Re. Now the cartouche. The Amun part comes first because of honorific positioning. The god's name is always written first, no matter how the name was pronounced. Then we have the Tut part, the loaf, chick, loaf. And finally the Ankh. So that's Tutankhamun, the living image of Amun. But there are still some hieroglyphs in the cartouche to translate. We have the crook, which was pronounced Heka and means ruler. Remember how on Tutankhamun's coffins he's shown holding the crook and flail, the symbols of kingship? I wouldn't be surprised if the bishop's crook in Christianity didn't come from Egypt. So Tutankhamun is ruler of what? The next two hieroglyphs answer that. The first one, a pillar, was pronounced Iunu, and it's the symbol of the city called On in the Bible, and Heliopolis, Sun City by the Greeks. We've seen that before. It's easy. So Tutankhamun is ruler of On, not the one in the north. The next hieroglyph, our sedge plant, is the word for south. Tut is here called ruler of southern On, which is Thebes or Luxor. The cartouche is followed by two more hieroglyphs we're familiar with. The first is D, to give, and the last is Ankh, and we can read it as given life. Putting the whole thing together, we get the good God, living likeness of Re, divine seed of Atum, king of Upper and Lower Egypt, lord of the two lands, Neb Keperu Re, son of Re, Tutankhamun, ruler of Thebes, given life. That's the inscription on the right side of the mirror. This mirror was used during Tutankhamun's life. There's nothing funerary about the inscription. Tut isn't referred to as the Osiris or anything like that. This was an inscription intended to be seen by the living. But now, let's look at something never intended to be seen by the living, the lid of Tutankhamun's sarcophagus. There's a mystery about the lid. Why is it made of a different kind of stone than the bottom part of the sarcophagus? The bottom, what we call the sarcophagus box, is quartzite, while the lid is granite. One possibility is that the quartzite bottom was already completed when Tutankhamun died, but the lid was not. Because of tradition, the body had to be buried within 70 days. There may not have been enough time to cut and transport a lid from the quartzite quarry, so a slab of granite available in Thebes was used instead. The lid broke in half during ancient times, perhaps when it was being lowered onto the sarcophagus box. There was an attempt to repair it, but in the end, the two halves were slid on top of the box till they met and the crack filled in with plaster and painted to hide the break. 3 elegant bands of hieroglyphs run down the lid, and I thought that for your graduation exercise, it would be interesting to see how much you can translate of the center band. The first 3 hieroglyphs are the formula Jed Medu, words spoken. The serpent is shorthand for our verb to speak, dejed. The walking stick hieroglyph is Medu and means words. The reed and the water sign is by. So we have words spoken by. Okay, by whom? Yes, Inup, Anubis. And we have the jackal determinative in case you weren't sure. Next comes the rabbit and water sign, Winan, to exist. Who shall exist? The Osiris. Next word, the king. Next, Neb-Keperu-Re. So Tutankhamun, because he's deceased and in the realm of the dead, is called the Osiris. He is with the God of the dead, and like him, he too will resurrect. Next we have the statue base M, which just like the owl means in. Then we have a very long word, starting with a goat skin that looks like a headless animal, and ends with the house sign. The goat skin is the phonetic for chenu, and the word really means interior, which is why we have the house determinative. However, it later gained the meaning of an insider, someone who is among the in crowd. Let's translate it simply as among, or with the M, it could be in among, and in a second, we'll see who the in crowd is. Next word? Yes, we have 3 Netcher god banners. So Tutankhamun is in among the gods, Netcheru in the plural. But that's not all. Next we have the plural of Lord. That's why the quail chick and the 3 strokes are there. It would have been pronounced Nebu. But they aren't just any lords. Look at the next word. We have the star hieroglyph, Dua, and the T, and the house determinative. It forms the word Duat, the ancient Egyptian word for the next world. So Tutankhamun will be hanging out with the gods, the lords of the next world. Now, the next word, the face and stroke. I'm not sure about it. It could just mean with regard to or concerning. We can ignore it in our translation. It's not crucial. The following word is a new one. But from the feet determinative, we know it has something to do with walking. The bird is a cormorant, and it's an AQ bird. It's a biliteral. The Q is the phonetic complement. The word ak means to enter. So Tut will enter. And what else? What's our next word? Per, go forth. The word per doesn't have the usual feet determinative because the word just before it did, and it can serve double duty here and save the carver a hieroglyph. So Tutankhamun will be in among the gods, the lords of eternity, entering and going forth. Our next hieroglyph is a very important one. It's the Ba, not our Ba biliteral, which is the bird with the leash. This Ba has the head of a human. It also has a bowl of incense with smoke rising from it. The incense shows us it has something to do with religion. The Ba was crucial for immortality. You see, the Egyptians believed that an individual was made up of several parts or aspects. We've already talked about some details of the Ka. That was a kind of astral double of the deceased. It needed sustenance, offerings had to be made for the Ka, and that's why we had the Ka priest industry. The Ba was more spiritual. It didn't need food, but it had personality. It was what made you you. That's why it's shown with the head of a human. To a great extent, these false doors that we translated were created for the Ba to come and go. It could fly in and out, perhaps in some way participating in both worlds. There's a famous Egyptian papyrus called the Report of a Dispute Between a Man and His Ba. That's as close to philosophy as the ancient Egyptians ever came. The dispute takes place during the First Intermediate Period, just after the Old Kingdom era of pyramid building, when the government collapsed. The man is complaining that lawlessness is everywhere. Robbers are on every road. There are no longer friends to turn to. He wants to kill himself. Now comes the good part. His Ba, his alter ego, tries to talk him out of it. He tells the man that if he commits suicide, he, the Ba, will desert him, and he won't be able to resurrect in the West. The idea is that you needed all aspects of yourself to resurrect: the body, the Ka, and the Ba. Without the Ba, there's no immortality. The man tries to bribe his Ba. He tells the Ba that if he doesn't desert him, the man will build such a wonderful tomb for him that he will be the envy of all other Bas. The Ba will have no part of it, and says the man has to wait for a natural death. The point for us is that in the inscription on the lid of Tutankhamun's sarcophagus, we have Anubis guarantee that Tutankhamun can come and go like a Ba. And look at the word that comes after the word Ba, Ankh. Tutankhamun will be like a living Ba. The next hieroglyph, the mouth R, as you know, means to. But it can also have the sense of in order to, and that's what it means here. In order to do what? Well, the next two hieroglyphs are very strange. They're two eyes of Horus. I suspect they mean to see. See whom? Re, the sun god. But notice, the arm is backwards. We have a left to right reading text, and the arm is carved as in a right to left text. Scribal error. So, Tut is going to come and go like a living Ba who will see Re. What's the next word? Yes, it's weben, to shine or rise. This is the first hieroglyphic word you learned at the very beginning of the course, when I asked you to guess the meaning of weben, re, and pet. You've come a long way since then. Notice how weben is spelled on Tutankhamun's lid. The sun hieroglyph doesn't come at the end, as a good determinative should. It's between the quail chick and the foot. I guess the carver thought it would look better that way. Remember, all through the course I've been saying you have to be flexible with hieroglyphs. There are very few firm rules. After weben, we have what? Yes, a suffix pronoun viper. So Tut will see Re when he rises. Look at the next word. It's familiar to us. It's hotep, to be pleased. But in this context, it means to set, to rest. Tutankhamun will see Re when he rises and when he sets. And there's the viper suffix for he sets. Where will all this happen? Our next hieroglyph is the statue base M, which, just like the owl, means in. In where? The sky, our familiar pet. What's the word that follows sky? Yes, land. And that makes sense. The sun rises in the sky and sets on land. The next three hieroglyphs form a grouping we have seen before when we were talking about the calendar. The sun with the stroke is the word for day, and the neb sign is every. Tut will see the sun rise and set in the sky and on earth every day. Now comes his name. First we have Sa-Re, son of Re. Then we can transliterate the name easily, Tutankhamun, which is followed by three hieroglyphs, each with its own meaning. First, the crook, pronounced Heka, means ruler. Next, again, something we're familiar with, Iunu, the city of Heliopolis. But the next hieroglyph means southern, and southern Iunu is Thebes, ancient Wasit. Isn't repetition great? It's getting easy. After the name is something we would expect, since this is in a sarcophagus inscription. Macharu, truer voice, the euphemism for deceased. Let me pause here for a moment to give you a translation tip. When I'm in a tomb that's new to me, and I don't know whose tomb it is, if I want to find the name quickly, I look for the Macharu hieroglyphs. And I know that the name of the deceased will be right before it. So if you're in a museum looking at a coffin with an inscription, look for the Macharu, and above it will be the name. Then just sound it out phonetically. Okay, let's complete our translation. We're near the end. The next word, cher, is a preposition, and it means a million things. Near, with, in front of, loads of things like that. So let's see what comes next, and then pick the most appropriate meaning. Well, we know the next two hieroglyphs, Necher-Ah, the great God. So it's something like, with the great God. Next, we have Lord. We should ask the usual question, Lord of what? Well, we see the land hieroglyph, so it's a place. At the very end, we have the foreign land determinative, so it's a faraway place. We just have to figure out the hieroglyph of the arm holding something. The arm is holding a ritual wand. The hieroglyph was pronounced Jesser, a triliteral, DJ, S, and R. It means sacred or holy. So Tutankhamun will be with the great God, Lord of the sacred land. And that's the end of our inscription. Let's read it from the top. Words spoken by Anubis. There shall exist the Osiris, the king, Neb-Keperu-Re, in among the gods, the lords of the next world, who shall enter and go forth like a living Ba to see Re when he rises and he sets in the sky and land every day. Son of Re, Tutankhamun, true of voice, with the great God, the Lord of the sacred land. Excellent. You can really translate. When I first began planning this course, I wasn't sure how much we could achieve in 24 lectures. But we've done considerably more than I anticipated. You can translate quite a bit. The Hotep Dinisu is now a familiar friend, and the basics of Egyptian hieroglyphs are no longer a mystery. You can even translate the spectacular jewelry of Middle Kingdom pharaohs. But understanding hieroglyphs is a skill you shouldn't lose. So let me give you some suggestions for how you can continue your study of hieroglyphs. Most important is to keep translating. This knowledge is indeed use it or lose it. Visit museums that have Egyptian collections. Look for false doors, sarcophagi, anything with inscriptions, and see what you can figure out. In America, we have quite a few major Egyptian collections. New York has the Metropolitan Museum of Art and the Brooklyn Museum. Although the Brooklyn Museum's Egyptian collection is not generally well known, it's spectacular and it's never crowded. Go there, you'll love it. The Museum of Fine Arts in Boston has a very large collection with many pieces from the Old Kingdom that no other museum has. By all means, visit it. It's worth a trip. While we're on the East Coast, I should mention the University of Pennsylvania's museum. They too have a large and interesting collection with lots of pieces to translate. Chicago has two major collections. One is the University of Chicago's Oriental Institute. The Oriental Institute are those guys doing the epigraphic survey, copying all the inscriptions on almost every temple they can find. The other major Chicago collection is the Field Museum, another important collection that is not well known. These are just the major collections in the United States. There are many smaller collections all over the country that you will enjoy visiting too. I think your visits to collections of Egyptian objects have been forever changed by this course. You know so much more now. But still, many hieroglyphic inscriptions will stump you. This is where books come in. The crucial book will be Sir Alan Gardner's Egyptian Grammar. It has almost everything you'll need to continue your studies. There's a good dictionary in the back to look up words you don't know, and there'll be plenty. There's also a sign list that includes almost every hieroglyph you'll ever come across. This list then leads you to an explanation of the hieroglyph, how it was pronounced, how it's used. Looking up hieroglyph words in Gardner's book is like solving a mystery. It's great fun. The Gardner book also provides you with a series of grammar lessons, each with exercises at the end. so you can go beyond what we've been able to achieve here in 24 lectures. As wonderful as the book is, I do have 2 reservations about it. First, it doesn't give the answers to the exercises. Second, it isn't an easy book to learn from on your own. But wait, there's hope. There's a second book I want to recommend. It was written by Dr. Janice Cameron, a curator at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Her book, Egyptian Hieroglyphs, A Practical Guide, also has grammar lessons with exercises to do, but the answers are in the back. It has objects to translate, a dictionary, and it's user-friendly. So this is the other book I recommend. To feed your general interest in ancient Egypt, I can suggest 2 organizations to join. First is the American Research Center in Egypt, called ARCE, A-R-C-E. This is an organization of professional and amateur Egyptologists. If you join, you'll get their journal and newsletter, you can become a member of a local chapter, and you can attend lectures. It's really pretty good. The British counterpart, the Egypt Exploration Society, also has a journal and newsletter that make joining worthwhile. They publish lots and lots of excavation reports and other books on Egyptology, and members get a significant discount on any books they buy. They also have lots of back issues free on the website. They too have lectures. One last suggestion is Kemet magazine, named after the ancient Egyptian word for Egypt. It's a popular magazine of Egyptology, very slick, beautiful color, with articles written by leading Egyptologists for a popular audience. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Now, before I lose you, let me show you my secret hieroglyphs. In the background set for our entire course have been these familiar panels of hieroglyphs. They are the credits for the course. There have been many people who helped make this course possible, and the hieroglyphs tell us just a few of who they are. This is one that might have been the title for our course. I bet you can translate it. Yes, writing in ancient Egypt. For some of the titles of people involved in our course, I had to fudge it a bit, since there was no comparable titles in ancient Egypt. For example, what do you do for academic content supervisor? Can you see what I did? Yes, the first word is overseer. Of what? Knowledge. It's pretty close. Now, what's his name? First name. Sound it out. Brandon. Good. Second? Hopkins. Yes, Hopkins. Thank you, Brandon. We had a producer. Here's what I did for that. First word, mistress. The next word, the I and the T is doing or getting done. Next word, yes, things. She was mistress of getting things done. I abbreviated her first name to just 2 hieroglyphs. What is it? Yes, Jen. Second name is easy. Yep, Gray. Thanks, Jen Gray. We also had someone who did all the picture research and found wonderful images for us. Her title is, yes, overseer, feminine of course. Of what? Tut. Yes, images. She's the overseer of the images. What's her first name? Yes, Abby. For her last name, I had to use the Ptolemaic lion for the L, or she wouldn't have had any name. Thank you, Abby Lull. We had an art director, but as you know, there was no word for art in ancient Egypt. So the best I could do was overseer of the sculptors. Her name, sound it out. First name, Marcy. Good. Second, it's Irish. Cochran. Thanks, Marcy. One last group of guys who are absolutely essential, our cameramen. Well, our 3 men hieroglyphs means men. That's easy. Next word? Yes, to go forth. And there's Tut. Yes, men of the moving image. Thank you all. There's just one last panel, and it's my wish for all of you. I know you can translate it. May you be given life, stability, prosperity, like Ray, forever. So now it's graduation time. Time to throw your cap in the air and feel good about what you've accomplished. And remember, this course is kind of like the movie Groundhog Day. You can play it again and again. And if you do, I'll see you then.